Okay. Let's do it. Ben and Lauren, thank you so much for coming. It's a pleasure to have you. And it also means a lot because we all have a lot going and that you would take the time. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Ben and Lauren of Green Room Cafe and Remedy Burger in Staunton, some of our favorite spots for sure. And I've really looked up to you since we first met, since you asked. I forget what our first conversation was about, morning buns, I think, but it has led to other things.
Yeah.
But what has really stuck with me, and I think what made me excited to have you all on the podcast, was we do some of your rolls that you use at some of your burger buns. And I made that first delivery when you were opening Remedy. This is how I remember it in my mind. And we have a conversation. I was like, how's it going? And you immediately jumped into a thought about something that you and I could partner with in the future. And it was like, this is day one of Remedy. And this guy's already thinking about the next thing.
I love that.
And I think it's such a demonstration where you're at the consummate entrepreneur. And I really look up to that. And I think Buddy and I in some ways are similar in that way. But that was one thing. And then the second thing that I really like about you all is what's on the Green Room website about, hey, the heart of what we're doing is good food and bringing people together around that food. Something that really resounds with us. But yeah, thank you for coming. And it's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
The first thing we had to ask about was your recent trip to Venice and high, low, anything unexpected from your time. Getting away.
It was a fantastic trip. We went for 10 days. We had a 24-hour layover on either end in Copenhagen, Denmark.
Whoa.
Which was cool. The first day we were dealing with the time change, and also I was super excited about having 24 hours in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
So we went like hard. We were exhausted. We basically didn't sleep at all for 48 hours.
It was like 36 I think.
hours.
Oh my gosh.
And we just were trying to do all the stuff in Denmark that we could get done in, 12 hours before we tried to get a little bit of sleep before we caught the next flight. And we did it so much so that when we went back the second time for the other 24 hours, it was like, no, we're just going to
sleep.
Yeah, we're just gonna
We just
sleep.
stayed in the hotel.
Yeah.
But I mean, Venice was astonishingly beautiful. It was like everywhere you turn is the most beautiful street you saw, like with a waterway, and then you would turn another corner and find another bridge, and it was exactly what you would expect. I mean, it was just it was incredibly beautiful. And we did Venice for 3 days, Verona for 2 days, which is just a short hour-and-a-half train ride, and then we went back to Venice for a couple days, which was really nice.
Awesome.
Any big takeaways that you're bringing back to the Green Room or Remedy after your trip?
I think that the Venice, I guess you would call them bars. They have this thing called cicchetti, which is like little bites, and they're like cicchetti bars. So you can go and get a coffee and a little bite of food, or a spritz and a little bite of food, or a glass of wine. Like they're just, and unlike bars in the U.S., they are open in the morning because the bar also implies coffee, not just not just alcohol or other beverages. So that culture was really interesting to see. And then Venice is also, there's not a lot of real estate, so they have to do a lot in a small space. And it made me realize, Green Room isn't a huge space by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, some of the places in Venice were half the size, or a third of the size of Green Room, and they're doing as much as we are, if not more, with like coffee service and different like kind of snacks. So that was really inspiring.
That's cool.
It's awesome. Little bit jealous.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah. Can you tell us about a little bit of your backstory and how you ended up in the restaurateur, I guess, in that field, because that's not where you guys started. You weren't entrepreneurs and doing your own businesses. You guys were acting, right?
Yep. Yeah. So we both. Did you do music? You did music in undergrad. So in undergrad, We both were in arts, basically.
Yeah.
And then we met in Houston at the University of Houston to do acting, classical acting.
Okay,
we
cool.
met
For
at
grad
the-
school.
For grad school.
For grad school,
Okay.
the professional actor training program at University of Houston is a 2-year program. When I came in, Lauren was in her second year, so I was the first year, she was the second year, and that was where we met. And we then started working after grad school as actors, and we started dating, and then we got engaged and got married. And for a while, we just followed work, which is very typical for actors. So if there was, a contract in Memphis, we would go to Memphis. If there was a contract in Nashville, we'd be in Nashville, which is where we started. And then the American Shakespeare Center in Staunton, Virginia had been on our radar for a long time, of a place that we just really wanted to work because we liked what they did there, which was Shakespeare, very kind of straightforward, a focus on the language and on the storytelling. And at the time, it was Jim Warren was the artistic director, who had this very hyper-focused sense of like how to do Shakespeare. And so we came in and auditioned as a couple. We were very clear that we were married and wanted to work here. We both wanted to work here, and
Does that mean the audition was literally the two of you simultaneously doing a scene? Or
We did, they had us
Monologue?
do scenes, but we did separate monologues,
Dialogue?
but we did a song together because you
Okay.
have to audition with the song and instruments, anything you can play. So we did
wow.
it together.
so we ended up getting cast, and we worked with ASC for 9 years as resident company members.
Cool.
Yeah.
You sign a year-to-year contract. Was that uncertain time? Was it like, hey, you can sign for 10 years?
Yeah.
I don't think they ever did it was more contract to contract, but it was just a general understanding that we were people who were there often.
It was never a guarantee.
Yeah.
But, when
You're likely
once
to get
you've
cast.
worked there so
Yeah.
long,
Yeah.
they would send emails like, "Are you interested in the next season?
Right.
If so, what roles?" And we would respond,
Yeah.
and then, eventually we got to a point where, I would say we were 90% certain that the next contract was coming.
Right, but it would still be contract to contract. So we
Wow.
we would only sign it for either the summer fall season or something like that. So not long contracts.
What were one of your favorite roles that you got to play during that 9-year span?
Well, I think I can say, one of our favorite roles, I can only speak for myself, but I assume that Lauren will agree with this. We got to do Peter and the Starcatcher at the American Shakespeare Center,
Okay.
which is this origin story for Peter Pan.
It's not Shakespeare.
It's not
Okay.
Shakespeare.
It was on Broadway.
It's a
Wondering.
great play from Broadway, and they produced it. And so Lauren and I got to play opposite one another, where I was playing Peter and she was playing Wendy's mother, right?
Yes. Is that right? Yes.
So that was just
As a kid, though.
Right.
and we also that season played Claudio. I played Claudio in Much Ado, and she played Hero in Much Ado. So we played opposite like that whole season, which was just so much fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's I feel like the dream for husband-wife acting duo.
Yeah.
That's
It was
so
pretty cool.
Yeah. And that was right around the time that I got pregnant, too.
Yeah, it was.
So
right
that was
after
my
that.
last season,
Yeah.
which was fun.
Yeah.
So what occurred? What was the catalyst from,
my gosh.
starring opposite each other to getting into the green room
Well,
in the entrepreneur?
so many things happened, that kind of took us from one place to the next. When Lauren was pregnant, that was when we kind of started to realize that we needed, we were hoping to get something that was not contract to contract, that was more within our control. And we always joke, that we wanted something that was more stable. So we went from a life in theater to a life in restaurants, maybe the most risky business venture you can take.
Yeah.
But knowing that we were going to start a family, knowing we were going to, we needed more stability. We fell in love with Staunton, disassociated from the Shakespeare Theater. We loved Shakespeare Theater. We loved doing that work, but we also loved the town and the community that we were introduced to there. And so we sort of decided, like, hey, we're going to be here, at least for a while, because we
had bought a
here.
house.
Yeah, we bought a house and did Airbnb because we were in actor housing from the theater for the first year.
So we had free housing. Yeah.
So we had free housing.
Cool.
So we bought a house in order to put down roots, but then we put it up on Airbnb. And then we had noticed that there were lots of places in Staunton to go after a show if you wanted like one specific thing, right? Like you could go and get beers at a local brewery after a show, but not everybody drank, or not everybody drank beer. They would, some
Right.
people liked wine, and the brewery didn't really have food. So then it was like, well, there was nowhere really to get food after shows. So we always talked about how we needed a venue to go to after shows as actors to kind of decompress and talk about the show or talk about the work, or just, hang out and not think about the work that we were doing.
Yeah, because I feel like most people, like at the end of your workday, you don't want to like just go home and go to bed. Like you need that time. And for us, it was like we got done so late that it was like 10 o'clock, and it's like, well, we can't just go home and go to bed. We need that time.
Yeah.
And we wanted
Stanton's
it
a small
all together.
town,
Yeah.
kind of like Lexington. Bigger, I guess, than Lexington, but
Small.
we have similar issues here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not a lot of things are open super late.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, not open late. And then the other thing kind of we were noticing was that we're big craft beer fans, and Green Room is definitely a testament to that. But we were noticing that there's all this amazing craft beer in Virginia, but it wasn't making its way to Staunton. It was like just an hour and a half drive to Richmond, and you have some of the best breweries that we've ever been to, but they weren't making it across the mountain.
Yeah.
And living in a small town, I also, was reading things like Bon Appetit and learning about natural wine. And that was also something where I was like, man, we can't get that here. Like I'm reading about it, but I can only get it when I'm in a big city. So
Can you tell us real quick what natural wine is?
yeah, so
I think I know what it is, but I'm not.
so natural wine, it's a little hard to pin down. It's a spectrum, just like most things are. But the basic idea is low intervention. That's another name for it, low intervention wine. So what you're doing is you're trying to manipulate the process as little as you possibly can. So wines that you typically buy in a grocery store may be, have different additives. They may have preservatives.
Yeah, I know the whole sulfites,
They might have
nitrates, that
right.
stuff.
They might have that in there. They're not required to disclose any of that information, so often you don't know. So there's all kinds of different practices for natural wine, from just like organic growing in the viticulture to wild fermentation, or what they call native fermentation, where instead of using an inoculated yeast to introduce the fermentation process, literally they just let the yeast that exists in the air in that area come in and start to indigenously create the wine. And then, like a good example would be what they call 0-0 wine, which means 0 added and 0 taken away, right?
Interesting.
Another thing would be like when you hear that a wine is vegan, what that often refers to is that in the filtration process, in order to make your wine more clear and not as hazy, they'll introduce different products that they'll like filter the wine through, and one of those is like a powdered egg yolk. So the impurities will stick to the powdered egg yolk, and then they'll pull that out. And so, but then once you introduce that product into the wine, it's no longer vegan.
Whoa.
So natural wine is it exists on a big spectrum, and it can be funky and kind of wild tasting, but it can also taste just like anything that you would buy in the grocery store.
That's really cool. When I was an intern at Polyface Farm right outside of Staunton.
Yeah.
One of the apprentices there was this guy, Ethan, and he would make cider by just getting, what was the name of that? It was this old cidery. It'd been in Virginia forever. It'd come in these big glass gallon jugs, and he would put it in this food grade, like Tupperware thing, and then just put a cloth over it. Yeah. And like sometimes it would become vinegar, and it would be like, okay, you made apple cider vinegar, and like sometimes it would become this really great light, slightly alcoholic cider that was just really good, and it had like the slightest effervescence to it, but it was kind of 50-50. Sometimes it'd be like, oh, not a good batch. Yeah. Gonna have to put spoons of that in water as like a health thing. But anyway, that's really interesting.
Well, and so to get back to the first question, so we had noticed this issue of that these things weren't available, that there wasn't a good spot that was open late that had a little something for everyone, and then we kind of always had that in the back of our head. And then one day we were walking towards the end of Staunton that had pretty much been like the downtown hugs towards the theater. And then as you get further and further away from the theater, there's like less and less life. And at that end, we noticed a spot that was for lease, and it had been a nail salon. It was like everything was mint green.
Yes.
And there were all these half walls in there. But being the guy who can look at something but see something totally different, I said to Lauren, I was like, that could be our place. And so we went and looked at it, and I was like, I think I can see it. And Lauren was like, I can see it too. And we just decided to take the plunge.
Cool. Was there a kitchen or anything, or all that had to be built out? Wow.
Even we had to put another bathroom in.
Yeah.
Everything had to be.
We had to do 2 bathrooms for health code, and then we had to build a kitchen from scratch. Although, what's interesting is when we were in Venice, we did this never having been to Europe, but they don't have kitchens in these little bars that I was describing. Oh. Like not like at Remedy where we have like a commercial kitchen with a big hood and professional industrial equipment. And we hadn't ever experienced that culture, but we built something very similar. It was like, what can we do without that? And so we did air fryers and toaster ovens and we have a 3 bay sink and a sandwich cooler. And the whole menu is done with that equipment.
Yeah, we started at a really good time. It was like a few months before the pandemic.
Oh, my.
That's when we got it started.
You opened your doors.
October of 2019.
Oh, my gosh.
So...
But it was the best. It was the best business school we could have gone through, because we opened. We were, I felt like I was drowning trying to figure out how to do everything for the first time ever, and we were having some success. And then COVID hit, and it was like, whoa, what do we do? How do we?
Because at this point you had separated from the theater, finished your last contract. You're all in.
We were all in
on the green room. Okay,
all in.
Well,
with a baby.
Funny,
and a baby.
Funny enough, I had finished a contract at the theater. We had gotten green room open, and then I was back acting at ASC in what was their Renaissance season when COVID hit. So it was a double whammy, like of the theater was shutting down, so that stream of income was going away, and we were having to figure out how we were going to sustain this brand new baby business.
Yeah.
What did you do?
We immediately pivoted to delivery. I sent Virginia ABC an email and said, can we get a delivery license? And so we became, your natural wine and craft beer delivery, lockdown delivery service.
Although Staunton, our people, they were really awesome, I would say. We had a lot of people who were regulars. We would deliver regularly to them. We started date night bags, so we were just like trying our best to figure out what to do.
Which I think was your idea, right?
I think so.
The like date night in a bag.
Yeah, because
that's such a good idea.
Nobody could go out and do anything anymore. So we were just trying to think of a way to like bring that to your house. So each week we would do a different, like we included a game that we really love, and then like wine and cheese, and like it would be like a whole date in a bag that we would deliver, which was fun.
Doorstep.
That's awesome.
And every week the game or whatever would be different. We did like paint by number sometime, just like whatever we thought would be fun.
We did a virtual wine tasting once, and we partnered with ASC and got tickets to
A virtual show.
A virtual show. And,
Is anyone doing like date night in a bag, like shipping, anywhere? Because that
don't
seems
know.
like a good
Yeah,
niche.
that's a good idea. Yeah, like a
Good.
box.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you could have,
it's out there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
makes so
But-
much sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun, and I think people really liked it because
Yeah.
it like
That-
gave them something to do, and they didn't have to pick it out like we did.
And that provided enough traction to
keep us-
keep going.
Kept the lights on, kept the bills paid and the rent paid, and then as soon as we were able, we started the slow and grueling process of reopening, bringing back staff. Everybody was wearing masks. The tables had to be spaced so far apart,
Yeah.
and we weren't allowed to have any seats up at the bar.
Yeah,
So
That was a tough time in
I'm
Virginia
sure it was for
Yeah.
I'm sure it was
Yeah.
for everybody.
Everybody, yeah.
You guys were in business back then, right?
Yeah,
Buddy?
yeah. It was. I think the hardest part we experienced, that I'm curious y'all's experience of, was like the, just the inconsistent rules. You could be gathering in this context in this mass, but not
Right.
at your restaurant. You could
Right.
only have
Right.
10 people in there. But
Yeah.
a conference hall can have, or like a business Marriott can have like 500 people at their
Right.
conference facility. It was like, all right, come on, at a certain point here, we need to all just be doing
Yeah.
the same thing.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That we ran into that with weddings, where because they were a private gathering, not a corporate gathering,
Right.
weddings were not allowed to gather. And this is in like 2022, I think it was. Yeah, in Virginia anyway. The rules were very, very, there was this weird, and so there was this weird differentiation. So we were thinking about like, well, maybe instead of weddings, we'll have farmers markets. And there'll be a wedding that happens at the farmer's market. That's not, they could do that if they want.
Right.
But we're going to charge them to host our farmer's market.
Right.
Luckily, we didn't have to go there. But anyway, did you guys have to deal with besides all the meeting the regulations, did you get to a point where you're like, how can we figure out how to do this, follow the rules, but like be open and meet the need that everybody's wanting,
Yeah, I mean, I think it was hard. Thankfully, the downtown then opened up outdoor seating.
Oh,
they
that's
closed
right.
down the street.
That was a
which
cool era
really-
for Staunton. That was when the
Yeah.
whole downtown was, or Main Street was like.
And
Yeah, and it still happens.
is.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
I didn't know that.
They kept
It's
it.
a big part of the story because so COVID hit, we pivoted to delivery, which kept us afloat. And then we reopened with all of the restrictions, and Staunton came up with this dine out downtown thing where we were allowed to put tables outside in the open air, and that a lot of people felt more comfortable dining
that's
that way
perfect.
anyway. And the more we did it, the more people liked it, and the more the restrictions got lessened, the more people we were able to serve. And then as the years went on, we had sort of like let's see, so 2020 was rough, right? And then 2021, we had sort of a bounce back because everybody had all this pent up desire to go out.
Yeah.
And we had the outdoor space, and those restrictions had lessened us like almost completely. So we could have a lot of people outside. And so we had a bounce back year in 21, and that was what led us to have the funds to open Remedy Burger in 2022 that's right? 22
Yeah.
in March. Is that right?
I think.
Yeah, and now we've got 2 restaurants, both with the Dine Out Downtown, and through iteration and doing it year after year, we're like, we know how to set it up and maximize the seating, and it just has become this very, like, we do it now from Easter through Halloween, and every Friday evening they close off the streets. We put out an outdoor section for each restaurant. At Green Room, it's like these little green turfs with lawn chairs.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then down at Remedy, we've got picnic tables and umbrellas.
That's so cool. That's exactly what I was wondering. And that's cool to hear that like the town like partnered with all the businesses to meet the need, and that it was such a good idea.
Yeah.
That they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Every Friday night. We got to go up for that. That sounds awesome.
It's
Yeah.
pretty sweet.
Well, I guess we missed it this year. Easter
Yes.
next year.
There you go.
Easter next year.
When did you, during this process, you stuck your neck out there to do the green room? When did you have the affirmation of, oh, this is what we want to do, and not only is this what we want to do, we can make it financially. Like, this is going to float the boat. Like, when did that occur?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would say it's been an incremental process. There's a philosophy of Kaizen, which is like the belief that innovation is not like just coming up with something and having this massive stroke of change, right? But that it's incremental change day after day after day that leads to what looks like
The 1%.
the 1% difference, the Atomic Habits style. And so it was little things, you know, and learning, you know, baby step. Okay, now we know how to do that, and now we can do this, and just continuing to try and take the right next step. That would be, I would say, like I don't know that there's something I can point to and say like it was this moment.
Yeah.
It was more that we just continually kept trying to do the next right thing.
Mm-hmm. And what gave you the idea or inspiration to take the jump for a completely different food service product in the best burgers around?
Yeah, probably more involved, I would imagine, on the food side than
Much more.
Green Room. Remedies, like you said, it's a full kitchen. You're cooking meat now. There's all of that. Yeah.
Well, and so before we get quite into Remedy Burger, because I think it is a part of the story, is Lauren, you should talk a little bit about your digital marketing company and how that came to be and came alongside.
Sounds like you're getting choked up.
Bless you.
Thank you.
I'm not exactly sure what you are like getting at.
Oh, perfect timing.
Sorry.
Were you doing?
Wait, I didn't know. So
Yeah.
you also have a digital marketing company?
Yeah. So,
So like Instagram, Facebook ads,
yeah.
Google AdWords, that
Yep.
kind of stuff?
And so I became so I have my own personal like Instagram page that became a business
And TikTok.
and TikTok
No.
now.
This
But yeah.
we did not find this in our research. This is great.
This is great.
We're
gems.
mediocre researchers.
No.
We got fixated on the burgers.
That's right.
We saw burgers, and that's all.
I mean, that's so what happened is I had this and I've been a photographer before for a long time. But I don't know if this is what you were getting at or not, but
Wait,
I
like
did that.
wedding photography?
Not wedding photography
Okay.
because weddings kind of freak me out.
Yeah, yep,
It's
fair.
too scary for
Jill
me.
and I were wedding photographers for 11 years. So.
Yeah, no, I get too anxious
you.
with that. I would miss the first kiss, I'm sure. But more like headshots and kids and portraits and things like that. But I have my own Instagram and TikTok, but more so focused on the photography side. I was able to bring that to our businesses. So I run the social media for those.
Right. So I was just saying, in the chronological timeline, you were growing this
Right. Okay.
before Remedy happened.
Yeah. As a way for me to make extra money for our family, but stay home with the girls.
Cool.
And it's all like parenting and mom life
interesting.
things.
Okay.
So
Gotta
not
check this
restaurant related at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a way.
What's the handle?
Mine is Little Lauren 86 on Instagram, which is horrible, but I made that name when I was in college or whatever.
Yeah, way before you ever were doing
And then
anything.
It's Lauren Reed is my TikTok handle and sort of the business name,
Cool.
digital marketing.
So like with the kids, right? So we've got a gathering place, you know, that's up and running, meaning the Green Room, which is sort of a bar, sort of like a cafe. It's just a spot where people can get together and hang out and talk and connect with one another and connect with our staff. And but we've also got now a little girl, and so Lauren is primarily home with Clementine, our eldest, and so she's working on her Instagram feed. I'm working on trying to make this thing run as well as I can figure out how to make it run. And part of that crossover would be the Instagram and social media feeds. So then Lauren is managing that for Green Room, also working on it for herself. And then she also starts doing Chicano Boy Taco. So she runs the social media for another
Oh, cool.
small business
Yeah, I know
restaurant. And then we learn of a space becoming available in downtown. We're just in the break talking about real estate and like, you know, there's only so many spots. So we learn about that and we start, you know, just rolling around ideas.
Yeah, well, because the people who owned that business that was in there, not the owners of the actual building, it was Laughing Bird. Is that no? Yeah, Laughing Bird. Laughing Bird Pho, and they were going to try to sell that business as a turnkey, like somebody can come in and take it over. And so we had talked about that, but we have no background with pho or
we don't have it. There's, I mean, you talk about
no
origin,
like a
right?
Vietnamese soup.
Menu, and so we
yeah.
don't have any connection to that. And so Lauren very astutely pointed out, like, well, we don't have any business in that business because it's not connected to who we are. And it was maybe a few days later that we were lamenting the fact that there wasn't a good burger spot in our town. And
I think we just wanted burgers one day.
yeah, we wanted burgers.
And we were like, there's nowhere to get a
not
good
dissimilar
burger.
to how we created Green Room, right? We noticed there was a void and it was like, we can fix that, you know? And so we started thinking about burgers, and then I started watching YouTube videos about burgers. We started eating a lot of burgers.
We ate a lot of burgers.
And then I
That's awesome.
started playing around with cooking burgers at home as we were continuing talks with the owner of the building and talking about the lease. And I remember the first time that we made you only need to do a few things right to make a good smash burger, but you have to hit them, you know? It's like a few important things have to happen. And if you get those, then the product that you get is spectacular.
Yeah.
And so I remember the first time we sat down to eat it.
Can you give us those? I want to know what those things are.
I can, yeah. And because it's like, you know, I would say one of the big philosophies for us is there's a difference between simple and easy, right? So like making a smash burger is simple, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. And you do have to have some dedication. You need some. The reason why it's easier to make it in a restaurant than to make it at home is it should become clear when I tell you. But you know, if you nail the right elements, then the product is great. And if you try to stay simple, if you try to make sure you only take on as much as you can handle, then you end up with something that can truly be spectacular.
I love that because you're talking about a burger. But I think that applies generally to anything one might be doing.
100%.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Well, and so with a smash burger, so let's see, what are the tricks? You need a hot, flat surface. This could be a outdoor griddle. It could be a cast iron pan. And pretty rip roaring hot. You know, you need to be able to get something that can withstand higher temperatures. And then you take a ball of beef. Here's another key. It has to be at least 20% fat content. Because if it's not at least 20% fat content, you won't get that Maillard reaction of the browning when the beef comes into contact with that hot surface. And then you want the surface to be relatively dry. You'll see people doing different things on YouTube. Some people like to use butter. I found what you really are looking to do is to marry the ball of beef to the flat surface. And what happens is the smash, right? Literally, you take that chunk of beef and you use a smashing device, of which there are many options. You know, so go online and take your pick. But then you're wanting, during the pressing into the hot surface, you're creating a ton of contact points. And because there's heat, the surface and the beef are literally sticking to one another in the beginning. And then you get this like beautiful brown, crispy skin, or not skin, but crispy outside. You're cooking it unilaterally, which is why they're so thin, right? So you flip the burger and add the cheese, but it's done cooking on the first side, right? So you smash, it marries to the surface, it creates that beautiful Maillard reaction, and you get the brown crispy beef, and then you've got to get between the two, right? So you need a scraper, You need to get between the surface and the beef and make sure you're not leaving any of that awesome crust on the flat.
This is so wonderful right now.
I know we should have brought
We need
burgers.
to go after this.
Yeah, we gotta go get a burger.
And then the key too is then it's about speed, right? Because you need to flip, get the cheese melted, and then it's done, right? So if it stays on too long, it's going to overcook. It's going to become kind of
dried out.
Like you want it crispy, but not dry. It's just, and it just goes from great to good really fast, and from good to not that awesome really fast. So you have to have it all in alignment. And it's like we found that the best, the Remedy burger is 2 patties is how it comes. So when you're making it at home, you have to make 4 if it's just for you and your significant other. And if you had a crowd, which we did a few times as we were testing products, like it became really hard to do, if we had 4 people, now we've got to make 8 patties all in one go. And until you've got an industrial equipment, like to serve an actual,
that's a lot.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've noticed this year, just thinking about business, like if that's one of the things that we're talking about here on entrepreneurship, is lots of businesses like to think that they can serve the entire market. And I've been listening to this guy, Daniel Priestley, a lot, and he makes the distinction of like, don't try and serve the market, try and find your market, and recognize that there is a limit to the customers that you can serve. On a Friday night at Remedy Burger, we can only make so many. Like our flat top, even with all of the staff and everything that we've learned, and we've gotten so much faster over the last year and a half. But on a Friday night, it's not unusual for people to wait 45 minutes, sometimes even an hour, to get their food. And the thing is I've been telling the staff, like, we need to lean into this because it's a good thing. And we need to let the people that we're serving, the people who come in, know it's not that it's taking an hour for us to get it figured out. It's that there's so much demand and we can only cook so many at a time. And the beauty of Remedy Burger is that when it hits your table, right? If you're in the restaurant, when it hits your table, it means it just came off the griddle like a minute ago. Like that's our system, right? We cook them as soon as they come off the grill. Everything's already ready for the buns. They get, any last minute toppings. The crown of the bun goes on. It gets placed under a heat lamp, and not but a second later, it's running from the kitchen to the dining room. And so you're eating it not but 3 minutes after it was cooked, if that. I mean, it might be less. And the same thing with our fries, right? Lots of places will hot hold fries, meaning drop them in the fryer, they pull it out, they put a batch in, and then they divvy it up as the orders come in. That's not what we do. So when you order a basket of fries, we drop your basket of fries in the fryer. As soon as it's out, we toss them with salt, we put it on a tray, and it's walking to your table. So they're always fresh, they're always crispy, they're always like nicely salted.
Do you think those small differentiators, in that they're simple, they have what I imagine a large effect on guest experience? Do you attribute that to like y'all's success with Remedy? Because it's funny, I actually bring up burger places as an example when I'm talking to friends about starting a business, and they might be like, I just worry, there's some other guy doing that same thing. And I'm like, I always go, well, think about a burger place. How many burger places are there?
Right.
But how many do really well because they've found their niche?
Yeah.
So do you feel like those things you were just talking through, like that builds a customer base that gets it? Kind of like the line at Bread Day. It's like, hey, they get it. Like there's going to be, might wait in the line for 20 minutes before you get up to the counter kind of thing.
Yeah.
Totally. That's fine. That's building and finding your market, your people. You don't have to, like at Remedy, we don't have to make a burger for everyone, right? We have to make make burgers the way we make them, the way that we think they are the best, and then find the people who are like, yeah, I like that. I like what they're doing.
That's cool.
And like you said, there's lots of burger joints out there. So if you come, and we say this to people quite literally, like, if you don't like what we're doing, we get it. And that's okay. Like, not everybody likes a thin, crispy burger.
Right.
Some people like a thicker pub-style burger. And and I like that too. I think I like the smash better.
Yeah.
But if you're like, no, I like a really thick, medium rare burger.
We don't do that.
That's not what we do. So go find the place that makes that burger and be happy about that. You know, like that's your spot.
I feel like that's sort of the same with our veggie burger too. Like we don't do the Beyond or we don't do any of those things because that's just not our preference. So we decided to come up with a veggie burger that is like different than everybody else's, but works in the same style as what we do with the burgers.
I respect that. As a livestock man, as someone who loves raising beef, I can't.
Yeah.
The Beyond Meat, I'm like, the branding frustrates me. It's not meat.
It's not meat.
It's not meat.
Embrace it if you're going to go veggie burger. I've had really good veggie burgers.
Make it out of vegetables.
No bad.
Right?
Yeah, and that's what we
use vegetables.
Yeah, that's what we decided to do because we talked about it. We were like, it would be easy to use this Beyond meat or whatever, any of those meats, but
it does go back to like often. One of my favorite quotes is a guy who does blackout poetry. His name's Austin Kleon, which is where he takes like an article from a published newspaper or magazine and he blacks out everything but the poem that he sees.
Whoa.
And my favorite one is creativity is subtraction. Just 3 words, right? But like oftentimes it's about taking away and I mean, what's amazing is that is what he's doing in blackout poetry, right? He's subtracting what doesn't need to be there so that what needs to be there remains. And so I think that that's the thing for us too, is like, and this is a pretty big leap of analogous thinking here.
Do it.
But,
Do it.
You know, like the Beyond Burger is like, I don't know, 50 ingredients or whatever. And it's neither beef nor vegetable. It's like, what is this thing? It's way too complicated. Is there a way that we can do a veggie burger that is just simpler and more honest of what it actually is? I mean, there's like 5 ingredients, something like that in our veggie burger. It is very simple, very straightforward, and we think really delicious.
Yeah, it's a broccoli patty.
It's broccoli, Parmesan, broccoli,
Egg?
Parmesan.
No egg.
Yes, there is egg. We used to have flour. There's no flour, so it's gluten-free. Garlic and onion, I think.
Sounds lovely. I'd love that
Super
on
good.
top of my burger.
I know you can, and you can do
And you
that.
can do that.
You can get your burger patty and then a broccoli patty on top.
I love that. Sorry, Daniel, you want to go?
One thing that we honestly refer to is how Remedy, and I'm less familiar with Green Room. I would say you're doing the same thing there, but what the Shear family is most versed in is the Remedy burger. But Fawn will often say, my wife will say, look how they've done one thing and done it really well. And you've continued to try and dial in that one thing as a reminder for us who have, our ideas are everywhere. Like, hey, just find the one thing and hone in on that, which I think you've done really well. Part and parcel to this is what I told you I wanted to talk about, but finding the right people, especially in the food service industry, to carry that, everything you just described, to do it on your behalf for Remedy in a meaningful fashion. How have you hired? Who have you hired? And how are you establishing the culture within Remedy? Because I think that's important to you. I can see it from the outside. My mom went the other day and spoke to that.
Oh, man.
But like all those things, how do you speak to those?
Go for it. He talks a little more than I do.
Yeah, right. I need to probably talk a little bit less and let my wife talk more.
No.
She gave you the green light.
Yeah,
I
that's
did.
true.
I did.
Well, culture is really important to us. And, I think it boils down to the golden rule, right? And I think we try to apply that with our staff and with our guests, right? Treat others as you want to be treated. It's as simple as that, Recognize that the people that you bring on, are partners in what you're doing while they're there, and so their needs matter just like our needs matter, and the needs of the guest matters, even when they're being, we like to call them Karens occasionally when they're acting like Karens. But even when they're, when they're disgruntled, when they're upset, we try to empathize as opposed to judge. We try to recognize that maybe they've had a really hard day, that maybe they really need some great service. Maybe, maybe we didn't manage their expectations. And we do that with again, the people who come in and touch our business as our clients, as our guests and patrons. And we do that with our team too, and recognize that everyone has space to be human. We have policies in place for calling out when important life things happen, so that, the team supports each other in those moments, and we make space for that, right? It's not like, well, you called out, you're fired, like you're no longer a part of our team. We also make a really big distinction to never use familial terms, right? Like you'll hear a lot of businesses be like, we're family. We often are like, we are not family, because that's a different thing, right? Like my family is my family. You guys are on our team, and like we care about you and we want to see you succeed, but we don't want to try and make you feel like you owe us anything as a family member, right? We both understand what this relationship is. We're both pulling in the same direction. We're in support of you. You are in support of us. We recognize that you are a human who has, a very multi. I don't know what I'm trying to say. A multitude of interests and needs, and
they got a life outside of
right. Life and work are different, and sometimes they bleed together, but they're often distinct, and we can't understand fully at what everybody's coming into the day with, and so we try to make space for that, and we try to care about people.
And then you can talk better about it, but about who, like we have a manager, or what is she? What's
structure?
Her? Yeah, the structure.
The structure continues to change, right? Like, so in the beginning, I was owner operator. I mean, we were owner operators, right? In there, owning the business, but also making it function. And then, like, maybe from owner operator, it moved to like owner manager, and then it moved to like owner general manager. And as our roles have continued to kind of escalate, we've needed more support underneath. And so like this year, currently her title is general manager of both restaurants, right? Her name's Adrienne Butler, and she's an incredible team member who's been with us since the early days at Green Room, and we worked with her at the American Shakespeare Center. She was
a
one
stage
of our
manager.
Stage managers. So our theater connection kind of goes and ties into what we've done in business. And so she's now the general manager, but we're looking at potentially moving her to what we're going to title Director of Operations, where she's touching more than even just these two businesses potentially, and we're just restructuring again. And the whole goal with the team is to look to provide as many people possible the ability to do the things that they are the most skilled at and that they enjoy doing, like to let their superpowers shine, right? And of course, there's a limit to what we're able to offer. Like there's just realities of what has to get done. But within that, people have certain skill sets and enjoy doing specific types of things. And so we're constantly like looking at people, and we do biannual employee reviews, and where we ask questions and allow them a chance to give feedback. And we're always like, one of the questions I asked this year was, like, what skills do you think we are underutilizing that you have? So we're constantly looking for like, what is the thing that makes you, that makes you special? And can we collaborate on how to better incorporate that into the work that we're doing across all the businesses?
What a great question. Love that. Do you have them provide feedback to either of you as well?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think that's really
Yeah.
important. I can't remember what book it was I was reading, but I remember someone saying that you need to understand what your team, like how your team thinks about you. And as close as your understanding can be to the reality of what they perceive of you is really important, you know?
For better or for worse.
For better or
Right.
for worse, yeah. I mean, that's a scary, it's a scary notion to try to understand how someone else perceives you. So in grad school, we had a mantra of challenge and support, and we've carried that into the business. So in those reviews, we try to provide both challenges to our staff and support. We try to recognize what they're doing well, and we ask for the same thing in return, right? What are there things you're noticing that are working? Are there things that we're doing that are not helping you to get your job done? And are there things you see that we can be doing better?
Are there, maybe there's systemic, maybe there's something you're dealing with right now, but challenges in your entrepreneurial journey, anything you're facing particular right now that's a hurdle that's hard to get over?
You know, we mentioned in the break bringing a Remedy Burger to Lexington, right? And I mean, it's like, you say that and it's like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. Like,
Yeah.
And the thing is that when you open a burger restaurant, you've now got, you got to buy a griddle, you need a hood ventilation system, you've got 2 fryers, all of that stuff has to be cleaned on a weekly basis or daily basis. And then the hood needs at least quarterly cleaning. It's just like running a burger restaurant is very operations heavy. And so the question becomes like, well, is that what we want to do next? Do we want to expand that operations heavy aspect of things? And it's like, it sounds great. We open 3 more.
Franchise it.
And we probably could. Yeah. And that's a model, right? Like
Yeah.
you can just outsource all of that to someone else.
Yeah.
But then there's also risk with that because then you're letting someone else tend to your brand, and you don't know what necessarily if they're going to run the company culture the same way that you have, and that's really important to us. That golden rule thing for me, that treating others the way that you would want to be treated. That as actors, you have to learn to empathize with people because you're literally portraying another human being, and so that empathy is like a muscle that you continually work on. And I think it's one of the things that has made us successful in business is that like we really believe it matters, not because a burger and fries matter, but because people come to us on their downtime with their families, with their loved ones, or just when they need a break, or when they're looking to go out and have fun, And so much of life can be hard and can be challenging, and so I think we take it on ourselves as like, this is a great responsibility for us to provide hospitality, to take care of people, and so we empathize in that way, and we say like, we will make this the best experience within our power, because it might really make a difference in someone's life.
I love that. Empathy is, that's really powerful to think about that in a business perspective, because I think, frankly, when you mentioned the golden rule, that's at the core of our mission statement for our staff. And we mostly ripped it off from the Four Seasons. I don't know if you've ever looked at their stuff, but
I've heard some, but yeah,
it's pretty cool. Well, one of their big things is about like personal respect, that your job comes from like respecting yourself, respecting your role within the system, like understanding it's appreciated and worthy of respect, and then you pour out from that, like loving your neighbor as yourself, you know,
right.
that you pour out from that, and you respect and you love and serve others. So anyway, that's definitely at the core of our mission statement as well. But the empathy piece is powerful, because you can't, if you're not empathizing with your customer, with your teammate, with your boss, if there's zero empathy there, then it's going to be really hard to serve them or connect with them at all. And thus that's going to affect the whole experience. So I think that's a really powerful point you made. I haven't thought a lot about empathy in my personal life, like empathizing with my 5-year-old daughter, and, as a grown man, and remember like getting to where the way she thinks about things to empathize,
Yep.
But to really think about that in business in the context of your team and your customers, oh man, that's great. I'm gonna be stewing on that. That's awesome.
Okay, so just going off of culture and we're talking about empathy and how we as actors work that muscle a lot, and I think that muscle has come in really useful, both in building culture within our staff and within our market. And I think that theater also has come in extremely important as an extremely important skill set for us in storytelling, right? In that you learn when you make theater that every choice you make or don't make is going to be interpreted for meaning, right? So if you have a habit of, you're constantly doing this, like moving your leg, or you have a twitch of the hand, that even if you can't control that on stage, the audience is going to think it's a choice, whether it's a choice or not, right?
Interesting.
And the same is true in life and in business, right? Everything we do is constantly being interpreted for meaning. And so we talk about this with the staff. I'm always thinking about it as an owner of a business. I'm sure Lauren is as well. Like, if we make a social media post of a Remedy burger, the way that it looks, and the way, even not just the way it looks, but the way it makes the person feel when they're watching it, and the expectation that's being created in their mind, we have to carry that story from them sitting at home seeing it through to the end of the dining experience and even beyond, right? Like, the experience needs to match. The storytelling needs to be consistent from top to tail. We were talking in a staff meeting the other day. I was like, we have got to keep the host stand in better shape. Like, I know we get busy and like all of a sudden people just are throwing menus back on there because they're trying to take care of the guests. And it's like, I know we have good intentions. It's like, I'm going to throw this here so that I can go and take care of this other person. But as soon as a guest walks in and sees a messy host stand, they're trying to subscribe. Oh, okay, is this going to be a messy experience, right? And so those little things that seem like they're unimportant are not unimportant. Every little thing is a part of the story that you're telling as your business. Every piece of marketing, every piece of the employee manual, anything that you touch is going to be interpreted. And so you have to approach everything with that level of artistry and storytelling. And that, working on that for years and years and years as actors, and trying to figure out, okay, why does one thing logically lead to the next? And how do we get from point A through the middle of point B all the way to the end of C, has, I think, been invaluable.
It's awesome. What, as you look forward for, maybe it's Remedy, maybe it's Green Room, but business in general, what does growth look like for you? What's the vision carrying you all forward right now?
Well,
that you can reveal.
He's I would say Benjamin is our visionary. So it's constantly changing, and it's real. I think now it's more of like, what do we want? What do we want to do moving forward? Because we could just stay still and do what we've been doing because it's doing fine, and we could just stay there. I don't think he could do that because he needs to constantly be doing. And I don't know that I would want to either. So, but I do think that it's deciding what exactly we want, because we could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach that decision-making process?
Here's the thing, because this has been something that has come up, and my wife has titled me an ideas man, because I'm always coming to her with like, well, what if we did X?
He says, I have this great idea.
I got a great idea. There's a great book I recommend you both read called Built to Last, if you haven't already. Jim Collins is one of the authors. I should know the other one, but it's not coming to me right now. But they study successful businesses, like huge businesses like Apple, and then they did a control group of businesses that started around the same time, around the same industry, that didn't quite become the behemoths, right? Mm-hmm. And tries to figure out what made the great companies great and the other companies just okay. Mm-hmm. And one of the things in that book is that they call it stimulate the core or preserve the core is what they say. Preserve the core and stimulate progress, right? Daniel Priestley in his writing calls it the secret sauce, like how do you stay true to the thing that has already made you successful, but continue to grow and build? Mm-hmm. So I think that's really at the heart of it is, okay, what is it? What is the thing that makes what we do special? What are our core values? What's important to us? What has made it work so far? Let's continue to preserve that and make that our thing, but let's also continue to innovate and continue to see what else might benefit from bringing that thing that is uniquely us into maybe a different field, or it's the same field. Maybe the perfect location comes up in Lexington after this conversation, and we're opening Remedy Burger, 6 months from now.
Right.
But I think there is an openness to allowing those things to being open to different things happening and not being like, it has to be like this. Mm-hmm. We have to franchise this concept. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be that. It could be any number of things. And we never know what tomorrow is going to, like we didn't know we were going to do this podcast until a few months ago. Mm-hmm. And who knows what doing this podcast might lead to. And so we just take another step forward and another step forward.
Yeah. Do you have the experience of, this is the analogy I've used with Daniel and other friends, that when Jill and I started in business, especially like as each of our business, but with the venue, for instance, it just felt like we were kind of like a long grassy hill that we're just charging up, we're boom, boom, boom. And it was just happening, we're making, and then as things continue to grow and there's more on our plates and all that stuff, it's like somehow I have the analogy in my head sometimes. It feels like more like I'm rock climbing now. And I'm more like, okay, I've got these holds and I'm looking at options of where I'm going next, I don't know. It's imperfect in that I think sometimes I go into it as if like, if I slip, I'm going to fall off this mountain. I think that's where the analogy fails. But do you experience that, or do you still feel like, because I'm very much a visionary, love to dream about the possibilities of different business ideas and then go after them. But do you experience that in the same way, or do you experience it differently?
I love the visual of it. It makes total sense. Like I would say once we signed the lease for Remedy, it felt like running up a hill, right? Because kind of what you have to get done in order to get to the next thing. And you also know you're going to have a period of spending money, spending time without any revenue coming in.
Right.
And so you want to get to the point where you can be bringing revenue in so that the business can start making some sense, So it gives you a clear destination. And then yeah, once you hit kind of a plateau, I get that rock climbing feeling of like everything feels like, okay, this is going to take a lot of energy to do the next thing.
Yeah.
You know? So I guess it probably comes in waves. Once you figure out and know exactly what the next move is, then you get to run a little bit uphill, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Have you guys read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss?
Yeah.
Yeah. That I don't know why that came to mind when we talked about this, but I guess it's maybe because he talks about how like you do the mini retirements, you know, he talks about mini retirements, and that's what came to my head of like, I love the idea of working on something you're passionate about and then taking a break. You know, going to Venice was so good for us as a married couple, for us as parents of little kids, for us as people who are constantly busy, to take a step back. And I was just telling Adrian, our GM, I was like, you know, a lot of the work that I do happens in my head, so I can't really like, I can't stop. Like when we're in Venice, I'm thinking about how they're running their businesses, what they're doing, how they're similar or dissimilar to what we're doing in ours. And so that time away is space for new ideas to develop, and we come back with a new sense of like possibility. What if we did this? What if we tried that? Should we look into doing this other thing or not?
Yeah, and I experienced that similarly. We were talking about this morning the just the reality in any organic system of you cause some sort of stress, you exercise it, whatever it is, and then the growth happens during the rest period after that. And that's like if you're working out in the gym, that's if you're raising cattle on pasture, you know, you graze that pasture down and then you let it rest. And that's where you get all your growth. So I really resonate with that as well. Another question, and then you could approach this from a lot of angles, but we like asking all of our guests that we've had on, how do you approach what is enough? Is there as entrepreneurs, there's so many places we can draw that line or not. And it's really fascinating to get everybody's different take on that answer to that question, or the way they even want to approach that question. So what's y'all's take on what is enough?
We probably have different interpretations. So I think I should let Lauren answer first.
I don't know. Like, so I'm a very content person. I like to have what we have and make it work. And I have enough now, personally, but I don't think it's enough for us if it's not enough for him, if that makes sense. So it's not enough for me if it's not enough for him, because we're a team. So I think I just think I'm less ambitious than he is, but I always stand behind it and am excited and want to make it work. So
I think it's important. This year, especially, I've tried to make the distinction between, like, I think I am probably more ambitious, but I think ambition and contentment seem like they're completely connected by a line, and I think that's not accurate. You know, like, the reality is that there's more than enough already. And for a long time, there has been more than enough. It's my perception that has shifted in that, you know? We live in the United States of America, where we're more likely to overconsume food than underconsume it, right? The harder thing is keeping the weight off than having enough. So I think it's a constant check-in with yourself of like realizing it's already, you've hit enough a long time ago. That doesn't mean that it's unhealthy to have ambition. You know, I think that both are equally necessary. And so it's it becomes for me about making responsible choices with the resources that we have been blessed with. You know, I'm learning more and more that, I mean, we haven't ever really discussed titles in the businesses, but I suppose I would be like the CEO of the organization. I tend to be in that role, at least. I don't know if I would call myself a CEO, but as I make decisions with the input of the other CEO, Lauren, I have to recognize that they all impact far beyond my sphere, you know, and they impact beyond me and Lauren, and they impact beyond our family. You know, we now have people who work with us who this is their career, at least at the moment, you know, and so now that the decision making now extends to that sphere, and so I always want to make sure that I'm being a good steward of what I've got, right? And first making sure that I'm not being reckless in any kind of choice. And then I'm trying to see what would lead us to be able to expand our, the things that we're able to offer, you know, better benefits to employees, better salaries, better work-life balance, like just trying to make the good things that we're doing better. And sometimes that means expanding operations, and sometimes it might mean the opposite, you know. Right now is not the time for us to go out and start a new restaurant, or we talk about it and it is the time. It just depends on the moment and the opportunities. And like Lauren said, like, is this giving us what we want, what we're after? You know, if we make decisions purely from a fiscal standpoint, we might wind up with a whole lot of revenue, but we're unhappy with the culture that we've built or the jobs that we've given to ourselves. So,
man, that's awesome. I can tell both of you have put a lot of thought into the decisions you're making, which is something Daniel and I could learn from. I mean, seriously though, I think that there's a lot of intentionality that I know you and I, Daniel, are always talking about. How can we learn and grow more in that? So thanks for encouraging us with that, with sharing your really thoughtful approach to all the stuff we're talking about. Super awesome. Do you want to go lightning round, Daniel?
Yeah, lightning round, just a few less heavy. I do have one heavier, but supposedly less heavy questions just to round us out. So
yeah. And the idea too would be you can speak as long as you like about them, but some of them can be shorter, sweeter answers.
You're telling Benjamin that.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Lauren. Just
don't talk too long, Lauren.
Yeah, you're not fooling anybody, buddy.
Yeah. All right, first lightning round question. If you had a young entrepreneur who's looking to you for advice, he says, "What's one book I gotta read if I can learn something?" What's that book?
Lauren?
The Montessori Toddler.
Hey.
Love it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Lately, I would say The Entrepreneurial Revolution by Daniel Priestley.
Okay.
Ooh,
can you give a short why?
I think he just has very... the concepts in that book are very actionable. They make sense, and you can take it from concept to application very quickly. Yeah.
Awesome.
What is your favorite footwear when you're working in your business?
Depends on the job. If I'm running food at Remedy Burger, it would be Snibs. I mean, Snibs, if you want to reach out for a partnership.
Yeah, that's great.
They're non-slips. So like, there's a lot of grease at Remedy Burger.
Yeah.
And if you're not wearing non-slips, you are
going down.
Yeah, you're going everywhere back there. So, but if I'm...
That's awesome.
I don't know. What do you like to wear?
I like Allbirds.
Allbirds?
Because they're like, I like the ones that don't have a thick sole, because I feel like it's like I feel like I'm barefoot, which I would prefer to be, but you really can't all the time. I can when I'm home.
Yeah.
But, so I like Allbirds. And they're lightweight, so if you're going to wear them all day.
Nice. Allbirds and Snips
Snips.
reach out for
Good,
sponsorships
yeah.
at Remedy Burger.
What about you guys? I mean, you're
I usually wear these Tecovas slip-on roper boots. They're kind of my go-to. They're nice because they're pretty much waterproof. Mm-hmm. They're like a classic, construction-wise, a classic boot that can be resoled, which most modern boots can't be. Right. They're bison hide, which just sounds awesome. And they've lasted, I think I'm going on over 2 years, which is a first for me. Most boots make it maybe a year. So
I'm Thorogood. These Thorogood boots are all I wear. In the bakery, I'll wear Crocs.
Okay.
Just a big fan, but Thorogood. Fawn hates that I have one pair of shoes, but this is it. Okay, what is your burger order at Remedy? What do you go for?
Man, I go for the Remedy burger. There is a Ballard burger that is my burger.
her maiden name's Ballard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's my burger, is the Ballard burger, and I do love it, but it is heavy. It's delicious. It's got pimento cheese on it,
And bacon. And garlic aioli.
and it's really good. But
It's
it is
indulgent.
rich. It is rich.
Yeah, that's a heavy one.
I would not say that would be my go-to, even though it is my burger. But I like the Remedy burger. But I do a single patty because I get full really fast.
Yeah.
But I like the Remedy burger.
So the classic Remedy Burger.
Classic Remedy burger with bacon.
Nice.
How have you been?
Remedy burger all the way.
Nice.
Can you describe it? Can you describe it layer by layer for
Well,
us?
so Remedy Burger is literally, it's just like a take on a classic burger. Like, it's not the secret to the sauce is there is no secret to the sauce. You know what I mean? Like, it's our Remedy sauce is basically a take on secret sauce, which you can look up many recipes online then you play around, decide what you like. You know, you can make it at home probably with what you have in your fridge right now. But the thing about that sauce is that it has some sweetness. It has a little bit of acidity. So
A little spicy.
it's a little spicy. Yeah. Or ours isn't.
Yeah.
Most aren't. But ours has a little bit of kick. And that kind of acidity cuts through with the richness of the beef and the cheese. And then the bun, looking over at you, is extremely important because burgers are all about ratio, right? Meat, cheese, bun, and in what proportions. Where we cut the buns is important so that when you bite, you get, the same amount on bottom as top, and the way that it stays together. The pickle adds to that acidity that bites, that cuts through. And the lettuce just gives that really satisfying crunch. So the Remedy Burger is just, it's a flawless design.
We have to go
It's
get burgers.
I know. And it's
But I'll say as a secondary backup, the Oklahoma onion
That's what I
burger
was going to say.
Oh, okay.
Is a
Is that
favorite.
like crispy onion?
So it's
I'll let him describe it.
onions, like thin shaved onions that we put on top of the beef before we press it into the flat.
And you smash it in.
You smash it in. Here's the thing, though: no condiments. It's meat, cheese, bun. Don't.
It's so
you're
good.
just gonna mess it up if you start
That's
adding
probably my
lettuce or
burger. I
anything.
think that's what I'm
Just simple.
getting.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
Later this
Awesome.
afternoon.
On Martin's potato bun or Season's Yield sesame bun.
Yeah.
Both work, but
That's the season's yield is what the Remedy burger
yeah.
is.
I would say for Martin's rolls, the onion burger. For Remedy, you got to go Season's Yield.
Yep.
Sesame bun all day, every day.
Yep.
Love it.
Hey, thank you so much for coming. I think one thing I'm left encouraged by your comment about we're in a position now where we're deciding what we want. And so you all haven't been doing it for very long. And to be in a position to be asking that question, Vice, what do we have to do,
Right.
is awesome. So well done. You're offering an awesome product. Thank you for supporting our business. Thanks for coming this morning.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you guys very soon at your fine establishment,
Love it.
Remedy Burger, and hope to visit the green room too. With young children, it'll probably be a special date night.
They are, well, the children are welcome. We love
Our
cool.
girls
kids.
go all the time.
Oh, perfect. Play date.
Coloring. We usually have coloring sheets
We
for
have
kids.
lots of different beverage options for people who, lots of non-alcoholic options. Lots
Perfect.
of, like
Jenny's
we have
ice
people who
cream.
come in and
Jenny's
get,
ice
we have like a
cream.
peach
Oh,
soda
really?
that kids love.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we will definitely see you there soon. Thanks for coming on the pod.
sounds great.
Thank you.
Can you give
Oh,
a
that's
plug
right.
real quick for where everybody can find you? Maybe rehash where they can find you, and then Remedy and Green Room.
Your handles?
Oh, yeah. On Instagram, it's Little Lauren86, that great name. And on TikTok, it's Lauren Reed.
And you can find us at remedyburger.com and The Green Room Staunton, STAUNTON.com.
And then our Instagrams.
Yeah, our
there as well.
Instagrams, you'll find that through the websites and emails. Any kind of contact you need is through there. Remedy Burger is super easy to order online, but be ready to pick it up as soon as it's done because it's got a limited lifespan. You want to eat it as soon as possible. After it gets
3 minutes or less.
That's right.
Thank you all so much.
Thank y'all.
Yeah.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.